Before I get started on the analysis slash review of sorts, let's get a few things out of the way right now. I want to separate the Mighty Number 9 game from the Mighty Number 9 experience. The overall experience is just filled with utter disappointment as it was from early on development. I won't sugarcoat this part at all. It really was a big letdown. The game got delayed 3 different times, and a trailer was made that is just downright offensive. And then they released the game with its own fair share of issues across every platform that they put it out for. How many that actually is, I don't really know. I mean, that came out. It's for all next-gen consoles. I'm pretty sure previous-gen consoles as well. I think the Vita port got delayed. 3DS is yet to be determined. The point is they put it out. They stretched themselves. They gave themselves way too many things to focus on, and their main focus from the get-go should have been the actual game itself. And whatever work that was put into that, clearly the focus was not in the right place, and that's very present with this game. Some people didn't even get their keys to play this in a timely fashion. And, I'd go into all the details at this point, but it's old news. You all know it already. One thing I want to get out of the way as well is the comparisons to Mega Man. They will be made when relevant. Just to be blunt, though, if you do decide to compare this directly to Mega Man, you are going to be greatly disappointed because this is not the successor to Mega Man that it was marketed as. Needless to say, obviously it hasn't been faring well on Metacritic and various reviews. If you're expecting that, again, you are going to be highly disappointed. So if that's literally the only way you're going to look at this, you might as well just turn back now. You don't need to hear what I have to say, nor the footage I'm going to show afterwards. The comparisons are inevitable, though, so they're going to happen. We're going to try to view this as an individual game and give this the most credit that we can, if there is even credit to be given at this point. Another side note is that I did back this on Kickstarter, and I'm not going to go into how much I did back it on Kickstarter, although I will hint towards how much I backed it on Kickstarter, because it's part of why I feel so strongly about the things that they messed up on. A direct quote from them, and I'm going to read this off my computer. The team, it will work with you over email to come up with a challenge based on your idea, within reason, to implement in the final game. Here's my issue. I never actually heard anything from Concept about this. I submitted my 3 ideas, and I don't know which of the 3 was actually put into the game, if at all. I know I named one that was flat out called Super Fighting Robot, but that probably isn't something that only I submitted their way. So whether to say that's the one that they actually put in the game based on my idea or not, I don't know. And then there's 2 other ones that I thought were pretty clever that people might not have come up with, but I don't see either of those titles in the achievement list. So I don't really know the end result of what I spent money on. And not to say that that's the only thing I got, but that was the biggest thing of that particular tier of backing. Needless to say, I've backed other things before, and what might debatably feel like is less worth it, but it feels more worth it to me because the end result came out great, whereas this is... I'm going to leave it to the rest of the video to determine just that. I went into this with kind of not... I didn't know what to expect, because with everything going around and then footage I've seen, it's like, okay, let me just play this for myself and see exactly what the deal is here. But I did contact Concept about this already. They never got back to me. Outside of that, the company that is in charge of the shipping, Fangamer, I heard from them right away, but they shifted the blame over to Concept, saying that they've been working on getting the game out, and this is why they don't have the stuff yet. Once this is done, hopefully they can do it, blah, 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 blah. So my request was essentially handled as to the equivalent of the release of this game. And as we all know, that wasn't so great. But needless to say, the mighty mascot that we have come to know, and a lot of people seem to hate at this point, clearly he beckons to us all. But the question is, should we really care? Mighty Number 9, right from the start, doesn't present itself quite right. The game is set in present time, the current year, as it says. There are rogue robots causing havoc in today's day and age? Minor detail, I suppose. But as long as we're on the topic of presentation, let's just get right into that. I feel this game should have been done with more modern graphics, or gone flat out retro. Instead, we got this game that looks like it could have come out in the PS2 era, and that might even be giving it too much credit. It looks dated as hell. There isn't much visually pleasing about this outside of select stages. Cutscenes are merely static images with horrid voice acting. Japanese voices make it more tolerable from what I hear, but it won't cover up the laughable story that the game tries to tell. Call, this game's role, is a lifeless companion that barely even gives you tips on what to do. What she does offer as a description before bosses is laughable, and in one stage she doesn't even feel bad for losing an enemy's coordinates. She apologizes, but her tone does not sound apologetic at all. It comes off as, oh well, maybe next time?
Mighty number 8 signal has vanished. I have lost the target. My apologies.
Said reaction is how I feel about the voice acting overall in this game, if there is to be a next game. The characters aren't all that interesting either. Beck really is not as interesting as Mega Man. In fact, if Beck was the silent protagonist, it might have been the better route. Even when Mega Man talked, sometimes he sounded, well, not like a man. Beck doesn't have this problem, but just doesn't strike me as this amazing character that is supposed to represent the series. What exactly is so mighty about a character that when he defeats an enemy, says to snap out of it, and has a crap animation that implies he's stealing the boss's power? Now let's try to focus on the gameplay here, though. Mega Man never quite had this outstanding story to begin with, although that is arguable depending on which Mega Man we're talking about here. So let's just assume that the story isn't good, because it isn't. The gameplay of Mighty Number 9 is a combination of fun and frustration, and as one can imagine, the two don't exactly mix well. In fact, it's mostly the latter, because this game throws cheap deaths at you without any warning. In a good game like Mega Man X, the game will kind of hint at what to do early on in the level, so this way you know how to tackle it. This game is mere trial and error. We're talking Silver Surfer trial and error. Nowhere near as hard as Silver Surfer in comparison, but the deaths can feel just as cheap in comparison, since they just kind of come out of nowhere. If the game shines anywhere at all, it's the bosses themselves. All the mighty numbers have their own unique personalities, which range from silly to pretty decent. The level designs to go with bosses, even if they look visually underwhelming, are pretty nice, and some really stand out. The highway stage for Mighty Number 7 is outstanding, as it pays more legit tribute to Mega Man than anything else in the game. It does so with things in the background via signs. The Proto Man are referenced in the sign, and in another sign shows a picture of Ego Raptor, which was surely put in for the sole purpose of referencing a quote from the Mega Man X Sequelitis episode. The riding on cars quote is relevant because it is literally what you do in the level itself. The Mighty Number 6 stage has wind effects. Mighty Number 8 stage has you hunting down the boss in the entire stage. The stage goes across the same few screens in a unique level design of its own because you have to chase him down by following a sniper fire. This also means you can progress by going left or right in the stage, instead of just going simply to the right like you do in most traditional side-scrollers. For a side-scrolling action game that takes, and I quote the site, the best elements from 18 and 16-bit classics that you know and love, it doesn't quite hit the mark. Beck can dash. In fact, the game wants you to own the dash as it's the main game mechanic. Weakening enemies and then dashing through them to kill them, or on bosses for lots of damage. Doing this will provide temporary buffs to Beck, like better damage absorption or a more powerful blaster. While you can dash all you want, you can't wall jump. Beck can only grab specific ledges. Sliding down walls? Forget about it. It's not going to happen. Want to use boss weapons to make the stages easier? Well, the boss weapons feel ultimately underwhelming in stages due to a bunch of them using too much weapon energy to justify continuous usage. The cool thing to note is that weapon energy will recover over time. However, in the heat of a boss fight, this won't fill up nearly quick enough. Referencing Mighty Number 7 yet again, when you get his blade weapon, use it like mad and forget the rest. His blade weapon and your standard blaster will go a long way. You can pretend you're swapping between X and 0 and, playing a good game. Beck doesn't exactly get any armor upgrades either. Bummer. There are fun moments in Mighty Number 9. The love put into the game certainly shines in the boss fights and characteristics. The music is pretty stellar as well when you're able to give it a good listen. However, the overall experience of getting to said bosses falls flat because of two major flaws which hold the game back a lot. The game's load times are up there with when Bloodborne first got shipped. The game takes what feels like a full 30 seconds approximately between deaths to load back up. Remember the cheap deaths with little warning I mentioned earlier? As these occur more and more often, you'll find your patience wearing thin waiting for a chance to simply try again. Did you lose all your lives? In true old-school platforming fashion, you'll start the whole level all over. Keeping all this in mind is a perfect segue to my next point of interest. Frame rate issues make parts that require quick reactions from annoying to what feels like damn well near impossible due to the second fatal flaw. This is more present in some levels than others, but when you run into it, it'll be real obvious and hit you hard. As far as I know, this is an issue across the various platforms the game exists on. I happen to be playing this on the Wii U, and to what I've looked into, this seems to be the buggiest version, lucky me. Some fare better than others, but they all seem to have this to some extent. Parts of the game that have pitfalls or one-hit kills, one stage in particular does combine both. This will be a nightmare, and it makes the game more difficult than it needs to be. I'm almost convinced that this was actually done on purpose, and this would be okay if the game simply ran smoothly and kept a consistent frame rate the whole time. And you'll attempt to run and dash through levels like it wants you to do, but at the end of the day, you kind of fall victim to this horrible issue that plagues the game. More can be said about the shortcomings of the game if we start to talk about an underwhelming final fight and credits that apparently last longer than the game itself once you know what you're doing, but it just adds more insult to injury.
Here we go.
The game is too easy to nitpick, and if we have to be real honest with ourselves here, we really don't want to. The truth is out there, however, and this is simply not the Mega Man successor it was marketed as. Not even close.
Oh, blast! I see no pattern whatsoever. What in Tyson's name is behind this?
The takeaway from all this, however, isn't all that bad. Remember, comparing this to Mega Man, you'll be instantly disappointed. As a Mega Man game, this is instantly one of the worst. As its own game, however, which is what it is, it's mediocre at best. And this is mostly due to the borderline game-breaking feature that plagues every version of Mighty No. 9 to some extent. I want to be the anime fan crying at prom night, really, I do. I have a better chance of my frown turning upside down if I get X to a dance than expecting this latest game to do so for me. Or perhaps I should just be happy, because it is better than nothing after all, am I right? With all said, I've certainly seen worse. If I had to actually put a number on this, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. And it's sad, because it would be rated higher if real simple things were fixed. You know, it's definitely not top material, but it's okay. And an okay game that performs well is an easy 7 or even 8. But with what I currently know, I have to put it at around a 6, maybe a 5. 6 would be giving it probably the most credit I possibly can. But that's just to put a number there for the people who do like numbers. I tend to not be a fan of them because you kind of find yourself going back and forth, much like I did right there. But all being said, give it a try. I wouldn't recommend buying it. If there's some way you can rent this, by all means do that, or wait for a sale to get it. Buy right away, I just can't safely recommend that to anybody. Especially if you know the entire history behind it as well. Which, while it shouldn't be a part of what affects the game, it's really hard to tell a backer in particular, a Becker backer if you will, that to just forget about everything you heard throughout the entire process, because Kickstarter gives you those updates, and just go right into it and have fun. And expect to have fun, because it's not going to happen. If you do, however, happen to not be a backer, again, should you play it? Maybe, but I would wait for either a sale, which is sad because it's not a $60 game, but I would wait for a sale or the chance to rent it and decide for yourself. Because at the end of the day, we all do have different opinions. This just happens to be mine with a little more emphasis than, hey, this game just sucks. Till next time, guys, catch you then.
It's all up to you. Roger.
Need a little assistance, but no problem. That's what big sisters are for. I'll just put it on my charge card.
Hey, thanks, Dinah.
Did you like my pun? You gave me that one. I'll let you handle shade yourself.